Good afternoon, New Brunswick, and welcome to today's COVID-19 update for the province with Premier Higgs today and Dr. Russell. We should be heading into the conference room very shortly, but just for a quick recap of the numbers as we know them, there was one new case of COVID-19 in the province yesterday. That case was in the Fredericton region and it was travel related. There are currently 8 active cases in the entire province, and the breakdown for those cases, now I can do it off the top of my head just because there are so few. There are 2 in Zone 1, that is the Moncton region. 6 in Zone 1, that is the Moncton region, so maybe not off the top of my head, and 2 in Zone 3, that is the Fredericton region. So all the other health zones in the province currently have 0 active cases right at this moment. Though, as you do know, we hear from Dr. Russell at the start of the conference with the new case count for the day. That's another journalist, if you can hear that from my mic picking up on the speakerphone, joining us. We should be starting shortly. We are expecting to hear today that we have hit 1 million doses administered in the province. That will likely be the reason they're calling the conference for this important milestone, as well as to give an update on the Path to Green vaccine rollout. Now, the numbers as we know them as of this morning were 62.7% of the eligible population in the province, so that's anyone 12 and older, currently is fully vaccinated. So we are aiming for that 75%, hopefully by August 2nd. We should be hearing an update today from Dr. Russell if it looks like we are still on target to meet the original New Brunswick Day deadline. Now, I know that there was some talk this week that maybe we could be off by a few days, but we'll hear from her if she thinks the numbers have picked up. 81.2% of the eligible population has had at least 1 dose of a vaccine currently, so that's a really hopeful number. If you look at the number of people who are likely to go ahead with the second dose eventually, that's higher. Sorry, my earpiece is falling out from my cues from the back room. We'll just fix that there. It's always live TV problems. 81.2% of the population currently has at least 1 dose, so it's a really great number in terms of where we can project ourselves to be. Now, whether we'll make that 2-dose deadline by August 2nd, still up in question. We should hear an update today that'll let you know if the outlook is good for meeting that deadline, but we're definitely on track to getting close to where we want to be. Canada, actually, this week, I posted this on our CHCO Facebook page earlier, just a couple days ago, but earlier this week, Canada did surpass the United States in terms of the percentage of Canadians who are now fully vaccinated. So it looks like Canadians are really rolling up their sleeves and getting vaccinated. So hopefully we will hear good news soon as to whether we do hit that green note. Other things that are of interest and questions that have been submitted to me this week that I'm considering asking. I think I will be one of the first journalists to ask a question today. We are going to go into the conference room. As soon as we get a feed, I will see you after the conference.
Welcome to today's update on COVID-19 in New Brunswick. Bon après-midi tout le monde et bienvenue à cette mise à jour sur le COVID-19 au Nouveau-Brunswick. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's update on COVID-19 in New Brunswick. Speaking on behalf of the province today are Dr. Jennifer Russell, the province's Chief Medical Officer of Health, and the Honorable Blaine Higgs, Premier of New Brunswick. Les porte-paroles aujourd'hui sont le Dr. Jennifer Russell, médecin hygiéniste en chef, et l'Honorable Blaine Higgs, Premier ministre du Nouveau-Brunswick. Dr. Russell.
Thank you, Bruce. Bon après-midi à toutes et à tous. Good afternoon, everyone. Aujourd'hui, je tiens à vous annoncer que notre province est en bonne voie vers la phase verte. Les Néo-Brunswickoises et Néo-Brunswickois font ce qu'il faut. Bien qu'il nous ait fallu quelques jours de plus pour se rendre à la phase 1, nous n'avons pas tardé à nous rendre à la phase 2 et nous en sommes très contents. Depuis, nous avons tous travaillé fort pour aller nous faire vacciner et diminuer le nombre de cas dans la province. Today, I want to tell you that our province is well on its way to green. New Brunswickers are doing what it takes. And while it took us a few extra days to reach phase 1, phase 2 came quickly, much to our delight. And since then, we have all been working hard to get vaccinated and keep our case count low. We have gotten as far as we have thanks to all of you who are doing your part by booking your appointments for your second dose, showing up to pop-up clinics, helping other people book their appointments and giving them a ride if they need one. The vaccination levels are increasing every day. We have very few new cases of COVID-19 in the province, and the ones we are seeing now are travel-related. We are stopping the spread of COVID-19 very quickly when it arrives in our province. And honestly, what we're seeing in other jurisdictions is that most people who are infected with COVID-19 or who need hospitalization are those who are unvaccinated. The virus still exists, and we all still need to be cautious. This need for caution will continue even after restrictions are removed. As you know, we will still have variants of concern that may emerge. We have people who cannot get vaccinated at this point, or people who have compromised immune systems, who perhaps the vaccine is not as effective. So we still need to be vigilant. Le virus est toujours bien présent et nous devons tous rester prudents. Cette prudence sera toujours nécessaire, même après la levée des restrictions. Aujourd'hui, Santé publique confirme qu'il y a 3 nouveaux cas de COVID-19 au Nouveau-Brunswick. Il y a 2 nouveaux cas dans la zone 2, soit la région de Saint John. Les 2 cas sont liés à un voyage. Il y a aussi un nouveau cas dans la zone 3, soit la région de Fredericton et de la vallée de la rivière Saint-Jean. Ce cas fait toujours l'objet d'une enquête. Il y a maintenant 10 cas actifs de COVID-19 dans la province. Et il n'y a présentement aucune personne du Nouveau-Brunswick hospitalisée en raison de la COVID-19. Ça, c'est des bonnes nouvelles. Today, Public Health has confirmed 3 new cases of COVID-19 in New Brunswick. In Zone 2, which is the St. John region, there are 2 new cases. Both are travel-related. There is 1 new case in Zone 3, which is Fredericton and the St. John River Valley. This case is under investigation. There are 10 active cases of COVID-19 in the province. There are no New Brunswickers in the hospital due to COVID-19 at the moment. This is very, very good news. As of today, 62.7% of our eligible population in this province has been fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Also very good news. At least 81.2% have received at least 1 dose. So what this means is that we are approaching having 1 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine administered in this province. This is a very important milestone in our fight against the virus in this province and in the country. Cela signifie que nous approchons le cap du million de doses de vaccins contre le COVID-19 administrées. Il s'agit d'une étape très importante de notre lutte contre ce virus dans notre province et dans notre pays. We have all worked hard to reach this number, and we will continue to work hard to get as many New Brunswickers fully vaccinated as possible. There are a variety of approved vaccines being used all around the world and right here in New Brunswick. And through social media and easy access to international media coverage of COVID-19, we have seen some mixed messaging on vaccines and their effectiveness. And sometimes it can be hard to know what to believe, but there are some things that we do know for sure. We know that vaccines work. And if you're having conversations with friends and family and community members or colleagues about vaccination, sometimes those discussions are difficult. Sometimes people need to be encouraged, but at the very root of that, they also need to make sure that their information is coming from a credible source. So please direct them to Public Health Agency of Canada, Health Canada, and GNB. We just have to look at the results here in New Brunswick. 3 new cases today, no one currently in hospital with the virus, and very few active cases. This is because people have been getting vaccinated, and that is great news, and we want to see that continue. We know that efficacy is best with 2 doses, and if you got your first dose, please don't skip your second dose. We need all the protection we can get. We don't know what lies ahead with respect to what's happening in other jurisdictions that aren't vaccinated in the world, and we don't know what variants of concern are going to emerge. So please, we want everybody to have the most protection possible. And we also know that people, again, who are immune compromised, who may be undergoing cancer treatment, or who may be transplant recipients, these people need all of us to be vaccinated in order to protect them as well. We know that in Canada, Pfizer is approved for those 12 to 18 years of age. We know that in Canada, both Pfizer and Moderna are approved for anyone 19 years of age or older. We know that Pfizer and Moderna are mRNA vaccines, and it is okay to have a different brand of mRNA vaccine for your first and your second dose, just like you may take Advil or Motrin one day for a headache, but generic ibuprofen on another day. Ici au Nouveau-Brunswick, nous continuerons de suivre les conseils du Comité consultatif national de l'immunisation. Ce comité appuie l'administration d'un vaccin à ARMNM après une dose du vaccin d'AstraZeneca, ainsi que le mélange des vaccins Pfizer, BioNTech et Moderna, selon la disponibilité du produit. Here in New Brunswick, we will continue to follow the advice of the National Advisory Committee on Immunization. This committee supports following the AstraZeneca vaccine with an mRNA vaccine, as well as the mixing of Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna vaccines based on whichever product is currently available. And right now, we have thousands of appointments available across New Brunswick at Regional Health Authority clinics, pharmacies, and mobile clinics for both Pfizer and Moderna. Access to vaccines in our province right now has never been, it's never been more easier to access right now than it is right now, sorry. So now is a great time to get vaccinated because we have the doses, we have the capacity, we have the access. It is it's easier right now than any other time in our vaccine rollout to get vaccinated. So if you haven't had your first dose or your second dose of COVID-19 vaccine, I encourage you to go to a mobile or a walk-in clinic if there's one in your area, or to make an appointment at an RHA clinic or a participating pharmacy. Please keep a close eye on social media and our website, www.gnb.ca/COVID-19 vaccine, for information on where the clinics are located. Nous encourageons tous les Néo-Brunswickoises et Néo-Brunswickois admissibles de se faire vacciner le plus tôt que possible, pour votre protection et aussi la protection pour les gens qui ont des problèmes chroniques médicaux comme le cancer et ont des systèmes d'immunité qui sont diminués. Vous êtes admissible à recevoir votre deuxième dose 28 jours après avoir reçu votre première dose. We encourage all eligible New Brunswickers to get vaccinated as soon as possible. You are eligible to receive your second dose 28 days after receive your first dose. And please, if you have received your first dose, make an appointment today for your second dose for the date that is 28 days later. If at the time of your first dose, you were given an appointment that is further out than 28 days, you can move that appointment forward by calling the pharmacy or booking an appointment at an RHA clinic, but please be sure to cancel your other appointment so somebody else can have that opportunity to have your slot. So while we are all on our way, we are well on our way to getting as many New Brunswickers vaccinated as we can, we should be very proud of the progress we have made, and we must remember that the COVID-19 virus still exists and can still spread. While case numbers have been low, we are still encouraging anyone having symptoms to make an appointment and get tested. Please take the self-assessment online or call 811 if you're experiencing any of the symptoms related to COVID-19 and book a test. As we learn to live with COVID-19 and as we prepare to reach green, it's important to remember that people will move to this next phase at their own pace, and that's okay. Some people will feel excited and eager to resume their pre-pandemic lifestyle. Others will feel stress, anxiety, and worry for different reasons. Again, they themselves might be immune compromised, they themselves might be undergoing cancer treatment or be a transplant recipient, etc. So we don't know how everybody is feeling at this time, but we do have to give them space and give them kindness and compassion as we move through these next few weeks and months. We need to respect people's feelings as they deal with this change. We need to be kind. Protective health measures like masks, hand washing, physical distancing help prevent the spread of more than just COVID-19. They also help prevent the spread of other respiratory illnesses like colds and flu. I definitely feel the positive advantage of having done so much hand washing in the last year and a half, and I feel grateful that I did not have a cold at any time in the last year and a half. So that was a good thing. And when we talk about the protective health measures moving forward, again, including masks, there will be people who will want to wear a mask for different reasons, and there should be no reason that anybody should be stigmatized or ostracized or judged for wearing a mask, for whatever reason. Certaines personnes peuvent choisir de continuer à suivre ces mesures. C'est correct si les gens ne sont pas prêts à arrêter de porter des masques ou s'ils ne veulent pas assister à de grands événements. It's okay if some businesses want to maintain their dividers and space in their establishments. As we move forward, it is important that we are understanding and supportive of one another. I was speaking to an organization yesterday where I think the capacity in one of their large rooms was about 165. They said they were going to keep it at 100 because that's where they were comfortable. And again, we have to respect that for every organization and every individual. If you are stressed or feeling anxious about what comes next, there is support. You can visit nb.bridgethegap.ca or nb.211.ca to find resources online and in your community. We have come so far and we have already achieved so much. We will continue to work together. We will make it to the finish line, again, working together as we have throughout the pandemic to protect ourselves and our loved ones. And I just want to give a shout out. There are some people in the Health Emergency Operations Center watching right now, and I just want to say good afternoon and thank you very much for all the hard work that you've been doing. And thank you to all New Brunswickers for all of your hard work. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Bonjour. Today is a day we've all been looking forward to, and I'm sure it's one that I will always remember. To say the last 18 months were unprecedented would be a significant understatement. There have been periods of high stress. We've had periods of immense sadness, heroic moments, and today is one of great pride. This morning, Cabinet and the All-Party Cabinet Committee on COVID-19 agreed that New Brunswick's mandatory order will not be renewed on July 30th. This will lift all of the mandatory travel and the public health restrictions that have been in place since the pandemic began. We came to this decision because we have surpassed our first goal of 75% of eligible population getting their first vaccine and are now at 81%. In addition, by the end of next week, the percentage of eligible New Brunswickers vaccinated with the second dose will be sufficient to balance out many of the current risks of living with COVID-19, while we continue to strive to immunize as many New Brunswickers as possible. Nous avons pris cette décision parce que nous avons dépassé notre premier objectif, soit aux 75% de la population admissible ait reçu son premier vaccin. Ce nombre atteint maintenant 81%. Du plus, d'ici à la fin de la semaine prochaine, le pourcentage de New Brunswickois admissibles vaccinés avec une deuxième dose sera assez élevé pour contrebalancer plusieurs des risques actuels associés au fait de vivre avec la COVID-19. Et ça, alors que nous poursuivons nos efforts en vue de vacciner autant de New Brunswickois que possible. We've been in phase 2 on our path to green since midnight on June 16th. And since that time, we have welcomed family, friends, and visitors from across Canada. And we have not seen any outbreaks. Today, we have 3 new cases, 10 active cases overall, and no hospitalizations. And the majority of new cases have been travel-related and have not spread. These are the reasons we are comfortable moving forward, as we know New Brunswickers now have the tools and the knowledge needed to manage COVID-19. We believe with these tools and our experiences of the past 17 months, along with the low case numbers, no hospitalization, and climbing vaccinations, we are safe to take this next step. What this means is that effective next Friday at midnight, all provincial border restrictions will be lifted.
CHCO.
Provincial border checks will cease, and registration will no longer be required to enter New Brunswick from anywhere in Canada. There will be no provincial restrictions, period. However, the federal border restrictions on international travel will remain in effect. Il est important de se rappeler que même si le Nouveau-Brunswick passera au vert le 30 juillet, d'autres provinces et d'autres pays font face à une situation bien différente qu'ici. Si vous pensez voyager, je vous encourage à le faire en toute sécurité et à vous renseigner sur les restrictions qui sont en place avant de partir. Within New Brunswick, limits on gatherings and people within facilities will be lifted. Physical distancing within theaters, restaurants, and stores will no longer be required. New Brunswickers will no longer need to wear face masks in public places. However, once the province's mandatory order ends, it is important that New Brunswickers know that there are still protections in place in case of outbreaks of COVID-19. As has always been the case, the Public Health Act provides public health with authority and operational framework to act in the event of an outbreak of COVID-19, or any virus for that matter. As well, there are safeguards in place for employers and employees. They must adhere to the Occupational Health and Safety Act, which explains duties and obligations related to communicable disease transmission. Comme le Dr. Russell l'a dit, la COVID-19 ne s'infecte pas. C'est pourquoi il est essentiel que les gens de New Brunswick continuent de se faire vacciner. Based on what we know about the effectiveness of COVID-19 vaccines, having a high number of people vaccinated provides both individual and community protection. This reduces the overall number of people who will test positive for COVID-19. However, it is expected that there will be some people who will test positive and experience milder symptoms, even if they are fully vaccinated. Nous savons qu'il y aura de nouveaux cas, mais grâce au nombre de gens déjà vaccinés, nous ne croyons pas que notre système de santé sera menacé. Si vous avez des symptômes de la COVID-19, faites-vous tester. Testing and monitoring for COVID-19 remains important. Based on current vaccination rates, the percentage of eligible New Brunswickers who will be fully vaccinated on July 30th is predicted to be about 70%, if not higher. We are comfortable with this, knowing our vaccination rates will continue to rise in the days ahead. As Dr. Russell said, you are encouraged to continue some of the practices that you've adopted, like frequent hand washing. And some people will choose to continue to wear a face mask, even though there's no longer a requirement to do so. For example, those who have compromised immune systems. Everyone has the freedom to do what is right for them. In the days ahead, I encourage you to keep that in mind as we move forward and open our communities and businesses with care. We must give everyone the time and space required to make their own decisions. Nursing homes, adult residential facilities, and our regional health authorities will continue to have policies in place that further protect the patients and staff in our healthcare facilities as we make the transition to living with COVID. You may see other organizations follow this plan or develop one of their own. Avec la levée des restrictions, les entreprises et les autres employeurs devront étudier leur situation particulière. Une fois qu'ils auront évalué le risque, ils pourront décider comment ils veulent procéder. In many ways, the pandemic has shown us who we are, how good we could be, and how good we can be. The success we've seen as a province would not have been possible without the collective efforts of so many individuals who have stepped up for the greater good. The examples of resiliency, support, and kindness we witnessed over the last year and a half make me very proud and grateful to call New Brunswick my home. We will take the lessons learned during this time with us as we move to green next Friday. Before I finish, I want to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Russell and her public health team for the hard work and dedication to our province during this challenging time. I also want to thank my colleagues, including the All-Party Cabinet Committee on COVID-19, who put politics aside and worked together for the greater good. I want to thank my cabinet and caucus as well for their leadership and their continued support. There are also countless public servants who went above and beyond over the course of the pandemic, ensuring that New Brunswickers would keep informed and had access to the services that they needed. Our public safety measures and border management were a key component to our success and protected the entire Atlantic region throughout the pandemic. I also want to thank Cheryl Hansen, our Chief Operating Officer, who led our province's public service during this difficult time, working tirelessly on their behalf, on behalf of all New Brunswickers. I offer my sincere thanks to all of them for getting us here. It's been a privilege to be part of this process at a time when New Brunswickers needed us most. An experience that no other premier has experienced, likely for over 100 years, maybe going back to 1918, but one that we certainly don't need to do another one of, but it is a point in time for sure. Et tant qu'équipe, nous devrions être honorés à l'avoir et la chance de sauver notre province de cette façon, et nous devrions être très fiers de ce que nous avons accompli. En travaillant ensemble, nous avons su monter la voie à suivre. Tout au long de la pandémie et lors des premières étapes du rétablissement, nous avons donné l'exemple et les autres provinces et même d'autres pays le remarquent. As New Brunswickers, we have engaged in a common purpose. We must now continue to build on the momentum we have generated. And just as the Minister of Health has worked tirelessly through this process, through COVID-19, there is still a lot of work to do as we engage the entire province in looking at health and the needs of our province as we manage that going forward. And we'll need to once again continue to work together to find solutions because the challenges are indeed immense. This is a pivotal point for our province. We've built a culture of accomplishment. We've built a culture that is being admired, not only nationally, but internationally. We have a can-do attitude where people are looking at us and saying, I would like to move to New Brunswick. I would like to invest in New Brunswick. I would like to be part of rebuilding New Brunswick. So when we talk of how good we can be, the sky is indeed the limit when we focus on our collective abilities and find ways to work together. So it is important at this point in time that we do celebrate this achievement, that we do recognize what we've done working on a common purpose and working together. I'm looking forward to New Brunswick Day, a New Brunswick Day like no other, where we look across our province and as one, we celebrate our success with COVID. And we look to the future with great optimism like never before. We can be better in the province, and COVID has shown us just how good we can possibly be. And we can do this in so many other areas. Thank you. Merci.
I just wanted to add to what Premier Higgs said about the work of the COVID cabinet. It was really wonderful to have the support of all the parties in this approach this last 18 months. It was very important for our success, and I wanted to thank Premier Higgs as well for all of his hard work and dedication to public health and all of the recommendations that we've made throughout the pandemic. And I want to commend you on the improvement of your French language skills throughout the pandemic. Great job.
Merci beaucoup.
Félicitations.
Félicitations tout le monde. Thank you, everyone. We will now proceed with questions from members of the media. Each reporter will have one question, and I mean a very, very quick follow-up. You will have the right to pose your question in the official language of your choice. Please ensure your microphones are placed on mute, and when you address, make sure you speak loudly into your microphone. Nous allons maintenant procéder aux questions des journalistes. Vous avez le droit de poser vos questions dans la langue officielle de votre choix. Chaque journaliste aura une question et un suivi très, très rapide. Voulez-vous assurer de désactiver le son de vos micros et c'est quand ton tour, prononcez ton question très fort, s'il vous plaît. Vicky Hogarth, CHCO-TV.
Thank you, Bruce. My question is for the Premier and Dr. Russell. We've heard from some New Brunswickers who are holding off on getting their second dose so that they can have a dose from the same manufacturer as their first dose. And they're not so much worried about the effectiveness of mixing doses, but they're worried that a mixed dose vaccine passport won't be recognized everywhere when they travel internationally. So should New Brunswickers who've had mixed vaccine doses be concerned this might affect their ability to travel? And what do you say to New Brunswickers who are holding out on getting their second dose to wait for one from the same manufacturers first?
Dr. Russell?
Hi, Vicki. Yes, we are very aware of that situation of people being concerned about travel to jurisdictions that don't recognize that interchangeability. And we do understand that the federal government is advocating to have its Health Canada approved vaccines, as well as the interchangeability policy, recognized internationally as a fully completed vaccine series. And we are really hopeful that that resolution is going to be reached in the coming weeks. So in the meantime, I would encourage people to not hesitate around getting that second dose booked, regardless of which mRNA vaccine it is.
Thank you. Ms. Hogarth, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, I'm wondering if most of the new cases that we are seeing in New Brunswick at this point are among unvaccinated individuals.
It's a very high number, Vicki, of people unvaccinated or not fully vaccinated. So since July 1st, 16 out of the 18 cases have been linked to travel. And of the 16 cases, 15 were either not vaccinated at all or they weren't fully vaccinated.
Thank you. Mia Urquhart, CBC.
Thanks, Bruce. My question is for Dr. Russell. You've been pretty clear that the science was guiding your decision to wait until we hit to 75 to reopen. Since the science doesn't seem to have changed, were you feeling political pressure to reopen on August 2nd, regardless of whether we hit that target?
Well, that's a great question. We are still aiming for that target. There's been no change in the science in terms of wanting to get as many people vaccinated as possible. And so based on the science, that hasn't changed in terms of what we would like to achieve and accomplish in the coming weeks. Does the mandatory order need to be in place to achieve that? I don't think so, because we have seen in other jurisdictions, such as places like Alberta, where they lifted their restrictions when they were at 70% of first doses and 38.2% of their second dose. And since then, they've continued to increase their vaccination rates, and they definitely are not seeing, they're continuing to see their case numbers go down and their hospitalization rates go down. So they're trending in the right direction. And the other thing is that because we are being vaccinated, we're probably one of the top provinces in the country right now in terms of our vaccination rates, but we're getting to more of an equal playing field in terms of the vaccination rates of the population across the country. So definitely domestic travel and those types of risks are being equalized at this moment in time because of our high vaccination rates in the entire country.
Thank you. A quick follow-up?
Sure, this one's for the Premier, please. What's the rush, really?
Well, I don't know that it's so much a rush. It's about the point that the case to maintain a mandatory order, emergency order, no longer exists. And, when we've tried to balance the public safety with our ability to adhere to the rules and our requirements, to keep moving the province and keep open as much as we possibly could. It's been a process from the very beginning. And at this stage of the game with, a series of 0 cases and running now with 10, but no hospitalizations, it's pretty hard to continue to say that, vaccines aren't working or we still have a level of risk that requires an emergency order. So certainly when you consider that we targeted originally 75% of both vaccines and initial target of 75% of at least one. Well, we're now at 81% of at least one, and we're at 62% of at least two, and expect to be in the 70s. So we're beyond what we expected in one dose. And to what Dr. Russell just said, we've learned continually through this process, and we've learned from openings across the country in areas where they have primarily one vaccine, how much difference the spread has been, and they haven't seen the outbreaks as a result of opening. So it's pretty hard for us to argue anything differently. So I would say that very, very much so that the science is playing the key role in decision making, and the experience level that has been developed throughout this and what we've seen from other provinces and what our abilities are here have given us the continued confidence to keep moving and to get families back together and loved ones to see each other. You know, I don't know if we can say that it's to me, that's the current emergency, is that we need our families and our lives to get back together.
I guess you can. Yes.
Yes, thanks. So our public health team has been working really hard behind the scenes throughout the pandemic, and in this particular, evolution and transition period that we're in right now, it was really important for us to establish that once the emergency, the mandatory order was lifted, what pieces of the Public Health Act would continue to allow us to be able to control COVID-19 as we do control all communicable diseases. And we were very confident with respect to the protective health measures that we do have the ability to have in place, again, with any outbreak, with any communicable disease. And again, we went through them one by one to, again, really solidify our confidence level for moving forward without a mandatory order in order to continue to manage the risks that we will see with COVID-19 in the future, again, as is the case with all communicable diseases.
Thank you. Jennifer Baza, CTV. Jennifer?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep. Bit louder, please.
Oh, sorry about that.
No worries.
Sorry about that. So my question is, how will the province handle possible future COVID-19 outbreaks once restrictions have lifted?
So again, the public health team has been working diligently as they have behind the scenes to make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. This is happening at the national level as well. So our FPT groups meet very regularly about case management, outbreak management moving forward, and what that looks like with a vaccinated population. So, what our risk stratification for somebody with COVID, that won't change. Somebody with COVID has COVID, they'll be treated exactly the same way they have throughout the pandemic. What will change is the close contacts, the contacts of contacts, and what their requirements will be based on their vaccination level and based on the vaccination level of their household members, et cetera. So all that is completely laid out right now in our plan, and with respect to how the public can access more information on what it's going to be like to continue to live with COVID, we do have a document that's being put online today with really helpful information for the public to really understand what it means to move forward living with COVID without the mandatory order, but all the different types of risks that you can manage at the individual level.
Do you have a follow-up, Jennifer?
Yes. My question is, what would you recommend to those who aren't vaccinated that are entering the province?
Well, again, those guidelines are all on our website as well, and it really depends on where you're coming from. If you're coming from a place outside of Canada, that falls under the federal jurisdiction and their quarantine laws, and so that won't change right now. That will continue. If you're traveling from elsewhere in the country, again, we're treating people from across the country the same as we're treating New Brunswickers right now in terms of the ability to come and go. I would recommend that if you haven't been vaccinated, you should get vaccinated with your first or second dose. We actually can vaccinate people from outside of New Brunswick at this time, and there is a way to make that happen, so that information is on our website as well.
Thank you. Savannah Odd, Brunswick News.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
A little bit louder and you're good.
Okay, great. This one's for the Premier. Is there any circumstance in which you would bring back the COVID-19 mandatory order? And if so, could you just describe what those would be?
Well, let's hope not. I guess one can never say never, but we're very confident in where we are right now and with the current abilities that we have in the province and the vaccination rates. But if you'd asked me this a year ago or a year and a half ago, let's say, I said, was there any circumstances that you see your government bringing in emergency measures? I likely we said, well, no, I doubt it. So who knows what the future may bring, but currently under the current situation, we don't see that requirement.
Do you have a follow-up, Ms. Odd?
I do, yes, thank you. This one's for Dr. Russell. Some cruise travel is requiring 2 doses of the same type of vaccine, meaning people who got AstraZeneca with an mRNA vaccine won't be recognized as being fully vaccinated. What do you advise people to do in this situation? Should they be going out and getting another mRNA vaccine?
Hi, Savannah. We're getting a lot of questions on that topic, so it is on our radar. We are waiting for, at the international level, for conversations with our federal government colleagues to be able to have those mixed vaccination that we want them to get recognized as they are here in Canada. So we are aware that that is occurring. We do hope that's going to be resolved in the next couple of weeks. However, in the meantime, we are not advising that people get vaccinated with a 3rd dose for several reasons. One, all the doses that we have allotted right now are for 1st and 2nd doses. And 2, the efficacy and the safety data that we have on 3rd doses is really around boosters, several months after, or many months after that 2nd dose. So at this point in time, we're really aware again of that situation, and if people can be patient, we do assume it's going to be resolved in the next several weeks.
Cédric, l'Acadie Nouvelle.
Oui, une question pour Monsieur Higgs. J'aimerais savoir s'il y a eu des discussions avec les provinces voisines. Je pense notamment à la Nouvelle-Écosse avant de prendre la décision qui a été prise aujourd'hui.
Yes, they are aware of what we were deciding. They knew we were on a path to green, and that path was taking us to August 2nd. So we advised them that we are moving that to July 30th. So that's not a big change or a big shift in their view. And basically, so before, when we got to the 2nd phase so quickly, I mean, we were impressed with how the population of New Brunswickers were getting vaccinated, which got us there. And so this is only a couple days from where they knew our target was in any case. So it's not big news in that sense. And we advised them this morning that we were making this presentation today.
Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Cédric, as-tu un suivi?
Oui, pour la Dr. Russell, j'aimerais savoir si, selon elle, la vaccination ralentit et si oui, pourquoi?
Est-ce que je crois que le déroulement, est-ce que le taux de vaccination est diminué à ce moment-ci, ou est-ce que j'ai des inquiétudes que ça va ralentir?
Est-ce que vous pensez que ça ralentit et si oui, pourquoi?
J'espère que non, mais je comprends si c'est le cas, mais je sais que tous les gens qui ont eu leur première dose, c'est en haut de 80% à ce moment-ci. Et j'espère que tous les gens qui ont eu leur première dose vont avoir leur 2e dose. C'est ça, on va continuer à avoir la capacité et l'accès au niveau des réseaux et aussi les pharmacies à ce moment-ci pour continuer à donner les vaccins qu'on a. On a beaucoup de doses qui s'en viennent. Je crois qu'une semaine, c'est 76 000 et l'autre semaine, c'est... je l'ai ici. Alors, 64 350 doses sont arrivées cette semaine, et la semaine prochaine, on va avoir 76 et 50 doses la semaine prochaine. Alors, on a beaucoup de capacité. On est encore préparé à donner les vaccins à tous les gens qui font les rendez-vous. Et aussi, on a encore des cliniques mobiles aussi.
Merci, docteur. Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Michel Corriveau, Radio-Canada. Erica Butler, CHMA Radio, Sackville.
Oh, hi there. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Perfectly.
This is for Premier Higgs, and I guess it's very much related to a question that just got asked by a colleague of mine in French. I just want confirmation that you've spoken to all three Atlantic premiers and confirmed that they won't be changing their border restrictions in light of New Brunswick's lifting of its emergency order on August 1st. And I guess I'm referring to restrictions for New Brunswickers.
At this time, we're not aware of any changes that they'll be making as a result of our move on July 30th. We did think it was important to announce this today to give everyone involved, information, whether it be businesses in New Brunswick and people in New Brunswick, travelers coming to New Brunswick, or traveling through or our neighboring provinces to be aware. So it wasn't like a next day thing. It's a week out. So that was important. And for us in our meetings, the conversations were had directly from my chief of staff to the officials within the respective premier's offices. And so they were both complimentary and wishing us well and looking forward to when they would be able to do the same thing.
Ms. Butler, do you have a follow-up?
Okay, yeah, I guess I will ask, did they state that they wouldn't be responding with more protective measures at all? Or is that you're just hoping that this week will give them enough time to react?
Well, I'm sure this week will give them time to react in any way they think is appropriate. However, they did not give us any indication that they would be making any changes to reinforce or enhance restrictions in any way. So I think they will be, monitoring their activities in their own province, which they're doing, and make a decision themselves in the coming weeks about their next step. Because that's more of the indication that we received, is that they too want to move along this area, and they too are watching what's going on in the rest of Canada, the vaccination levels, and what's happening in each province as provinces have opened up. So I would see them to actually move forward in the coming, to do very little change at this stage, and to in the coming week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks to actually start to reduce their restrictions. But obviously that's their call, and obviously but they did not share any concerns with us.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. Thank you, Premier. Sophie des Hôtels Radio-Canada.
Oui, bonjour. Ma première question est pour le Dr. Russell. J'aimerais que vous m'expliquiez si on a laissé tomber le 75%, l'exigence de deuxième dose à 75% parce qu'on savait qu'on n'allait pas atteindre ce pourcentage-là, ou si ce sont pour d'autres raisons qu'on décide d'ouvrir à la phase verte.
Alors, avec les taux de vaccination qu'on a aujourd'hui, comparé à d'autres endroits dans d'autres provinces du Canada, on sait qu'il y a d'autres provinces qui ont des taux de vaccination qui sont plus bas que les nôtres, et eux, ils ont ouvert et changé leur système au niveau des mesures de santé publique à ce moment-ci. Pour les risques, aujourd'hui, dans la province, au sujet de l'épidémiologie, on a vraiment des risques très bas à ce moment-ci à cause des taux de vaccination tout alentour du Canada et aussi dans la province. Et c'est quelque chose qu'on peut continuer à atteindre le but de 75% avec les 2 doses, mais ce n'est pas nécessaire d'avoir l'arrêt obligatoire pour réussir.
Mademoiselle des Hôtels, as-tu un suivi?
Oui, question pour le Premier ministre sur un autre sujet. La vice-première ministre Chrystia Freeland était à Fredericton aujourd'hui et a visité la clinique d'avortement qui est fermée, la clinique 504. Elle a critiqué votre gouvernement de ne pas avoir respecté l'accès gratuit à l'avortement dans toute la province. Quelle est votre réaction à ça?
Well, basically, I find it disappointing that every election the Trudeau government wants to make this an issue. We have a letter received. We'd asked the Horizon Health to give us indication of what the needs were and what additional services should and could be provided. And they have responded to that in a letter that was of July 20th. I dated July 20th. And basically, they are making it very clear that based on the information they have and that they have received, we've not received any recent requests to establish surgical abortion services in Fredericton, St. John, or Miramichi. It's our position that there's no need to establish another service. The Moncton Clinic sees a stable volume of referrals and has been able to meet the service demand, and they will continue to monitor the situation, and they're open to discussions with physicians and nurse practitioners to determine if access to abortion services require modification. So let's not continue to make this a political football. Let's base it on the facts. And the facts are that the Horizon Network are very prepared to have further discussions to meet the needs if indeed there's a need required. So I'm not sure why this continues to be a debate, because that's always been the case, and they've put it in writing, so it's there for everyone to see, and then we can move on accordingly.
Monsieur le Premier ministre, merci, Mademoiselle des Hôtels. Pascal Rochnog, Radio-Canada.
Oui, bonjour, Dr. Russell. Question en français pour vous. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous expliquer un peu, je sais que vous l'avez fait en anglais, mais qu'est-ce qui vous permet aujourd'hui de recommander le passage à la phase verte, même si on n'a pas encore atteint le 75% de 2 doses et que le 30 juillet, fort probablement qu'on n'aura toujours pas atteint cet objectif-là. Donc, qu'est-ce qui a alimenté votre réflexion et qu'est-ce qui vous rend à l'aise d'appuyer ça?
Oui, très bonne question. Au fur et à mesure qu'on reçoit des nouvelles informations, on continue à faire des nouvelles analyses. Et au fur et à mesure qu'on a reçu l'information que d'autres endroits avaient des taux de vaccination qui étaient moins de ceux ici au Nouveau-Brunswick, comme dans l'Alberta, etc., ils ont ouvert leur province et il y avait encore les nombres de cas continuaient à diminuer, les nombres d'hospitalisations continuaient à diminuer. Et on voit toujours dans d'autres parties du Canada et aussi au Nouveau-Brunswick que la plupart des cas sont des gens qui ne sont pas vaccinés. Et la plupart des gens qui sont hospitalisés, c'est des gens qui ne sont pas vaccinés. Alors, on voit que la protection est là pour ceux qui sont vaccinés. Il n'y a pas de question. Et aussi, on voulait expliquer aussi que l'arrêt obligatoire était en place pour protéger notre système de santé. Notre système de santé n'est pas à risque à ce moment-ci et ça veut dire que est-ce que c'est vraiment nécessaire de continuer à réussir à notre but d'atteindre 75% de la population avec 2 doses ici au Nouveau-Brunswick sans avoir besoin de l'arrêt obligatoire. Et à ce moment-ci, quand on a fait l'analyse avec toute l'équipe de santé publique pour les politiques sous les lois pour la santé publique, c'était clair qu'on a tout le pouvoir avec les lois en place pour la santé publique pour contrôler le COVID-19 comme toutes les maladies transmissibles.
Merci, M. Rachnog. As-tu un suivi?
Oui, un petit suivi rapide. Dans le communiqué de presse en français, on dit que l'ordre d'urgence va être levé à 11h59. Juste confirmer, c'est bien 23h59, donc dans la nuit du vendredi au samedi. C'est exact?
Midnight, July 30th. It's on midnight, July 30th. That's what I am.
On the evening between July 30th and July 31st.
Correct.
Thank you.
Merci. Michael Staples, Brunswick News. Tim Jakes, Brunswick News.
Yes, thank you. My question's for the Premier. My first question, Ambulance New Brunswick numbers show the overall time ambulances spend parked waiting for their patient to be admitted to hospital is growing. We asked the regional health authorities what they're doing to improve the situation, and they simply say they evaluate their process regularly. What would you like to see happen with the health authorities and Ambulance New Brunswick to make sure offload delays don't just keep getting worse as they currently are?
So I think we obviously have to turn our attention to this situation because it is concerning as we've seen with certainly the closing of ERs and the lack of staff. We've seen that across the country. We've seen Quebec are going through a similar thing, and when I spoke to my colleagues last week, across the country, it's a pandemic of its own right in relation to healthcare services. So I think the idea when we got into COVID, when we say what we learned from COVID, we were able to create vacancies within the hospital by moving people that were needed or able to be moved to more appropriate facilities and do so quickly. And I think what we've done here is we've basically allowed the admissibility to a hospital become unmanaged. And as a result, we're finding we don't have space. There has to be a critical space requirement for emergencies. And that means that system has to follow that when the ambulances get to a hospital, there has to be a place to move people into that hospital. If it's an emergency, there has to be that capability. So I think the whole series of process going right from admissibility within hospitals, what type of vacancy levels you need to maintain to have an operating capability that meets the needs is very important. And I'm confident the Minister of Health will be working with the CEOs and the new board chairs and the network to find a way to accommodate the people of this province and do it in a reasonable and meaningful way. The same thing that's gone on through COVID, because what we've learned is we can be better.
Mr. Jakes, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, it's also for the Premier. As you may have heard from the chair, Brad Mann, the Restigouche Regional Service Commission says a report is coming which shows this part of the province suffered the most economically during COVID due to the border restrictions with the Gaspé area of Quebec, with which, as you know, it has close economic ties. Is your government open to some kind of special compensation or program to make the area whole?
Well, you know, I guess no one has been kept whole in that true sense of the word throughout this entire pandemic. You know, every individual, every business, everyone has taken a toll on all of us. So to use the words to keep us all whole is likely probably an overstatement. But in terms of looking at the region and saying, you know, that was a region that we locked down, and we did that not so long ago, back in the early part of this year. For reasons, to your very point, that it borders the Quebec region, which was having an outbreak, and we had to move quickly and keep it isolated to that area. So given that, we do have a compensation program that is focused on those areas that were locked down or gone to red and had let's say, unusual impact as a result of our regulatory requirements at the time. So are we willing to look at that and how they're impacted based on the fact that it went into a lockdown in red? Yes, we are, and we have a program that does that.
That concludes today's COVID-19 update for the province with Dr. Russell and Premier Higgs. Big news today, as we heard, as of midnight on July 30th, the mandatory order will be lifted and we will move to the green level of recovery, which means all COVID-19 restrictions will be over. So that is huge news and not news we were expecting today. Other than that, there were 3 new cases of COVID-19 in the province. 2 were in the St. John region, and both of those cases were travel related. The other one was in Fredericton and is still under investigation. I did ask about mixed vaccines and whether that will play a role in international travel in the future. So please rewind the conference if that was the question that you sent in. Many of you did, so I tried to get that answered. Obviously, they don't fully have an answer at this point in time, but it is something that is being worked on, and the World Health Organization, I am sure, will be involved shortly and will do what they do in order to make sure that is internationally recognized. For those of you watching this broadcast on Rogers Cable, you will notice that today we are finally in HD. Now, while Rogers does not put CHCO in every home across New Brunswick, we were informed today that we are on CHCH's Channel 11 all across Ontario today. So if you're watching from Ontario, this was, I think, an error on the part of Rogers, but we appreciate you watching our New Brunswick news, and I am sure you found our conference as fascinating as we did today. So thank you for joining us. I'm sure that it will be fixed in the very short future sometime today, but we appreciate you getting a taste of the East Coast with us. I'm Vicki Hogarth at the CHCO News Desk. I will join you next time.
This has been a news and public affairs production of CHCO-TV, New Brunswick's only source for independent community television.